If you're a martial artist, whether that would be boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, judo, whatever it may be, consider yourself lucky, because any lack that you may have in physical capacity like strength or endurance or things that otherwise would have a genetic limit, it can easily be compensated by superior technique and strategy. And luckily for you, those are trainable qualities. We all have genetic limits when it comes to strength and endurance, and we can only increase them this far. But strategy and technique is never ending. You can always become better in this department. This video is all about how to train strategically, therefore improve at a faster rate and stopping this autopilot, unconscious style of training once and for all. Success in any area, and especially martial arts, is a very complex issue to study. You can't simply set rules such as do X and Y to become the best boxer or the best wrestler in the world. This is all because of the human factor. We are all simply too different and too complex to be generalized into set rules. For instance, you might have athlete A who prefers a structured and calculated approach. They want to be logical about things, they put a rational mind into their training, they respond very well to a tough and authoritarian leader, they might show potential almost directly, and they are usually excellent listeners, very moldable students who ask a lot of questions. Then we have athlete B. He might prefer a creative and unconventional approach. He doesn't like to do orthodox things. He responds very well to a tolerant leader who lets him be who he is, not a dictatorial one. And he might show potential after a long time. He might do very awkward movements at the first times, like he might not be a very good student like from the beginning, but he will later show his potential after a much longer time, and this can be deceiving. And he might respond better to encouragement rather than direct orders and bossing around, for instance. Then we have athlete B, who might prefer raw grit and not too much technical details. They often have freakish physical capacities and they are very tough and resilient. They might make up for any faults in technique or strategy simply by hard work and toughness, and usually those type of athletes are very prone to emotions because their emotion fuels them. You see, everyone is different and there is no one size fits all really. All of those athletes, A, B and C, they might eventually reach the same level, but they need different approaches. All of them have their pros and cons and they can all improve in some way obviously, but one thing that is guaranteed to make you improve is experience. Now, before you accuse me of going full fortune cookie, let me explain. We have experience and we have quality experience. Low quality experience is training as means of routine with no plans or strategies. You just go every training session on autopilot, doing the same old routines that you did before and hope that you someday come to some grand awakening that suddenly makes you this world-class athlete. Simply going to your training sessions as means of routine is not enough if you're striving for greatness. Anybody can do that. High quality experience, however, is that you have a strategic approach to your training and you have goals before every training session. What is my goal today? How can I get out of my comfort zone today in this training session? Do I have to shoot for 10 takedowns? Do I have to emphasize head movement? Do you know what I mean? It's conscious training. It's not autopilot. It is planned beforehand. Low quality experience means that you have no reflections on mistakes and you are therefore prone to repeat them. You will be stuck in this circle. You will be fooling yourself like, oh, I learned from my mistake, when in reality you don't. You are prone to repeat them. You never reflect on mistakes, but because this can hurt your pride, of course. Why would anyone want to analyze their mistakes? I'm a good athlete. I don't make mistakes, right? No, that is not the case. You need some humbleness here. High quality experience means that you reflect on your mistakes. You see it as it is in this ruthless, objective manner and you make adjustments. You make the necessary adjustments. Low quality experience is that you simply see no connection between things. Like training, every martial art is a puzzle. They are all interconnected in some way. If you train in a low quality manner, you will train in a very mechanical manner. You will not see this connection. With high quality, you will have a curious spirit. You will start connecting things like, oh, this leads to this, that leads to this. You know what I mean? That is high quality experience. And please, don't think of this. If you train strategically, don't think of it as a shortcut. There is no such thing. You still need to put in the hours necessary. It's simply a way to spend your time more wisely. We will go more in depth into this. Keep watching. As an end note to this, not all of us are really blessed with a world-class trainer that can monitor our training 24/7, telling us exactly what to do. We usually just have one coach in the facility that needs to keep track of dozens of athletes at the same time. And even if you had one, you yourself need to be aware of your strengths and weaknesses. You can't have someone babysitting you all the time. Just saying yes to instructions is not enough. You need to know the purpose behind the instructions as well. Get used to asking why. So here we have an athlete that wants to improve a problem. Ask yourself the following question. What do I need to do differently to improve this problem? This problem could be that he gets taken down with a single leg too often, a double leg. He gets hit with a jab too often. Anything. What do you need to do differently to improve this problem? Once you have found that out, with the help of your coaches, with the help of legitimately good professional people, divide the problem into small, manageable pieces and attack them one by one. Let's say you are a boxer and you get hit with the jab too often, one time too many. And let's say the root problem you come up with is that your head movement is faulty. Then you will consciously make a plan to address this issue. You will deliberately fight defensively during sparring for a period of time until you feel satisfied. You will consciously be reminding yourself of this goal during training. You will not care if you make a fool out of yourself. In addition to this, you might spend 15 minutes extra at the end of every training session doing various head movements drills. As simple as that. You see? You identify your weak link, you make the necessary adjustments, you make a plan for it, and you do it for a while, until that issue is solved. Then you go over to the next issue. Training days, your practices, whether that is sparring, whether that is boxing, wrestling, rolling, anything, it is a perfect opportunity to experiment and work on weak links. And for that purpose, here are some more examples of weak links that you can work on. We have a wrestler here. His issue might be that he is playing too safe during training, not taking enough risks. Basically playing too safe, not improving. If you play too safe, you won't improve. The solution is take more risks. Shoot for more takedowns, even if it means making a fool out of yourself. Being passive and never improving is way worse. If you don't take any risks, you will never improve. And the first step to taking risk is being aware of this fact. Simply setting the pride aside, and you have to be willing making a fool out of yourself. That is the only way. Take more risks. Then you will check that issue and you will go over to your second issue, and that might be not using your full body during a double leg takedown in wrestling, for example, only using your arms, which costs a lot of energy and it is inefficient. What is the solution to this? You ask your coach or a qualified person for technique cues, adjustments. You will take notes and you will apply them during drilling and live wrestling. You will remind yourself in some way. Maybe write on a piece of paper before the session, maybe writing a mark on your hand. Anything to remind you. And on top of that, you can spend 15 minutes extra at the end of every practice session to work on those adjustments exclusively with a training partner, for example. I mean, we are only human, we forget. We might have the solution, but we forget. And the solution to this is that you have to find a way to remind yourself. Maybe you can tell your friend, remind me of this. Do anything to remind yourself, that is the key. Also, note that it is probably not a good idea to work on too many weak links at the same time, as this can be too overwhelming for you, and you will therefore do a poor job. It is a lot better to put 100% effort into few at a time, because then they will get emphasized much better, as opposed to just having too many eggs in one basket. Don't make the issue too general. Be specific, otherwise it will be too hard to make a realistic action plan. You can think of it as a GPS. You need to put in proper instructions and guidelines, otherwise it will take you nowhere, right? Same thing here. So, why is it so important to be strategic about your training? Let me give you an example. We have athlete A and we have athlete B. Both of them have the same issue that is preventing them from progressing further. This issue could be anything. None of them know what it is, but it is there. They know it. Otherwise they would improve, right? Athlete A decides to be analytical about his training, constantly going through errors and improvement every sessions. He might have a notebook where he reviews every training day, what he did good, what he did wrong, and then he makes a conscious effort to address them. He asks professional about solutions to his problem. He's just monitoring every training session, being very hardworking about this. Athlete B, however, simply trains on autopilot. He might be working hard, they might both be working as hard, but athlete B doesn't reflect too much on what he does right and what he does wrong. He just goes to the training sessions like he's supposed to. That's it, no reflection, then he goes home. Considering they are both hardworking athletes with equal physical capacity, strength, endurance, whatever you want, athlete A will probably have addressed this issue at a rate 10 times faster than athlete B. And this is simply because athlete B is not reflecting on his errors. He is just letting his training sessions slip by. He will be stuck in a circle of repeating mistakes for a very long time before this issue is addressed. Do you see now why this is so important? Here is an extremely important question that I want you to ask yourself, especially if you are striving for greatness, for the big leagues. If you are already spending so much time in an activity that you obviously want to progress in, then why would you do that half-heartedly? Why deliberately decrease your odds of succeeding? Don't you value your time? Think of it this way, you are already spending multiple hours every week on an activity where you obviously want to reach your highest potential, right? You're already in the training facility. You already know that you will be there for 2 hours or whatever. No more excuses. If you're striving for greatness, this is supposed to be a painful process. Make peace with that fact. I want you to take a look at the top athletes in any martial art or any endeavor for that matter. Chances are they have very philosophical personalities and they apply to their training as well. When you watch their interviews on YouTube or wherever else, you can hear it in the tone of their voice and just the way of their talking that they are very deep thinking individuals. Let's take Mike Tyson for instance. It's easy to think he's just this impulsive animal, this wild beast that goes in the ring and slugs it out. It hasn't even occurred to some people how insightful and philosophical this man actually is. During his stay with his trainer Castiamato, who adopted him as his legal guardian at a very young age, Mike Tyson would have access to countless tapes of boxers from the past and the present and study their technique rigorously for hours every day in this room. He would read books about great conquerors from the past, including Napoleon, Alexander the Great. He learned about the art of war and that of human nature. He read history. His philosophy was that if you read history, you become an adept at human nature, and boxing is a war of some sort, and you need to be aware of this art. That was his philosophy. You see the pattern here? You need to be a deep thinking individual. You can be tough and that will only get you this far, but when you get to the big leagues, it's a battle of intelligence, it's a battle of strategy.